Have you ever felt your home watching you? In today's story, a staircase becomes more than just steps. It's alive, whispering, pulling, and changing those who dare climb it. This house doesn't haunt, it consumes. Stay close because this tale will make you fear the familiar. For some context, when I was a kid, my grandmother always told me to avoid staircases at night. They're bridges between worlds, she'd say, her voice low and grave, as if she knew something no one else did. When it's dark and the house is quiet, the stairs aren't yours anymore. They belong to something else. I laughed it off, like any kid would. But when she passed and I inherited her old creaking house, I stopped laughing. The stairs in her home always felt strange, too steep, too narrow, the wood slick under my feet as though it wanted me to slip. After I sold that house, I swore I'd never live in another old place. But when Lily showed me the Victorian on Elmwood Drive, I felt that old unease creep back up my spine. "It's perfect," she said, spinning in the foyer. Her smile was so wide, so full of hope, that I couldn't say no. The house loomed around us, its tall ceilings casting long, jagged shadows that moved even when nothing else did. Dust hung in the air like a fog, and the wallpaper peeled in long, curling strips, revealing the splintered bones of the walls beneath. But it was the staircase that held me captive. It coiled up from the center of the house, an imposing spiral carved from some dark, oily wood. Its banister was smooth, gleaming unnaturally in the dim light, and the steps were impossibly deep, as if they'd been built for something larger than humans. When I stared at it too long, my vision blurred, and the staircase seemed to twist, the angles wrong, the shadows pooling in ways they shouldn't. I felt it then, a pressure, subtle but undeniable, like the house itself was aware of me, watching. "It's just a staircase," Lily said when I mentioned how unsettling it was. But even she couldn't hide the way her voice wavered, just a little, when she touched the banister. The first few nights were quiet, save for the usual creaks of an old house settling. Lily and I busied ourselves with cleaning and unpacking, but every time I passed the stairs, I felt their weight, their pull. It wasn't just their presence, it was the way they seemed to demand attention, to want something from me. The first time I heard the footsteps, I told myself it was Lily. It was after midnight, and I'd been lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. The sound was faint at first, a soft creak, then a pause, then another creak. The pattern was too deliberate, too steady to be random. I got up, my heart pounding, and stepped into the hallway. The stairs were empty. "Lily?" I whispered, my voice cracking. No answer, just the oppressive silence of the house and the faint scent of wood polish that had started to cling to everything. I checked every room, but Lily was fast asleep in bed. The next morning, I found something that made my stomach turn. On the first step was a faint impression, a footprint, but it wasn't mine or Lily's. It was long, inhumanly so, with too many toes that splayed outward like tree roots. The wood beneath it was warped, the grain rippling outward as though the step had softened under the weight of whatever had stood there. When I showed Lily, she laughed nervously. "It's just an old house," she said. "The wood's probably warped from moisture or something." But that night, she stared at the staircase longer than usual, her fingers grazing the banister. The noises grew worse. What started as faint creaks became loud, deliberate thuds, like something heavy dragging itself up the stairs. And then came the whispers, low and guttural, words I couldn't understand but felt deep in my chest, like vibrations reverberating through my ribs. And then there were the dreams. In them, I was always at the base of the stairs, unable to move. The wood was no longer wood but flesh, pulsating and veined, slick with something dark and wet. Faces swirled in the banister, their mouths opening and closing as they whispered to me in languages that twisted my mind. At the top of the stairs was a figure, tall and angular, its body wrong, too many joints bending the wrong way. Its eyes were deep pits of swirling black, and its grin stretched impossibly wide, splitting its face in two. When I woke, I could still feel the weight of its gaze. I thought it couldn't get worse. But then Lily changed. I found her one night standing on the stairs, her back to me, her head tilted at an unnatural angle, her neck twisted just slightly too far. "Lily?" I called. She turned slowly, her movements jerky, like a marionette being pulled by invisible strings. Her face was hollow, her skin sagging as though it no longer fit her bones. Her eyes were black voids, and her lips were cracked and bleeding, stretched into a smile that wasn't hers. "They're beautiful," she whispered, her voice rasping like dry leaves. "What are?" I managed to choke out. "The stairs," she said. "They've been waiting for us." I tried to run that night, but the house wouldn't let me. Every door led back to the base of the staircase, its steps glistening wet and raw, the faces in the wood grinning at me with too many teeth. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. They weren't words anymore, but emotions, sensations, fear, hunger, longing. I fought for days, maybe weeks, refusing to climb those steps. But the house wore me down. The air grew heavier, suffocating, until it felt like my lungs were filled with tar. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't breathe without feeling the pull of the stairs. Last night, I stopped fighting. As I stepped onto the first step, the wood shifted beneath my feet, soft and warm like flesh. The faces in the banister writhed, their mouths stretching open in silent screams. With each step, my body felt lighter, less solid, as though the house was peeling me away from myself. My skin tingled, then burned, then softened, sinking into the stairs as if I were melting into them. By the time I reached the top, I was no longer myself. My arms had twisted, bending in impossible ways, my fingers merging into long, spindly appendages. My skin pulsed with the rhythm of the house, veins spreading like roots into the floor. And then I saw Lily. She was waiting for me, her body fused with the staircase, her face stretched across the banister, smiling. Her voice echoed in my mind, soft and sweet. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" And for the first time I understood. The house doesn't take you, it welcomes you.